This is Numbers with Nicole, and our lesson is going to be finding the arc length. So what is arc length? That is all or part of the circle's circumference, which is the distance or length around the circle. So arc length is just a piece of this distance, a piece of this length. So our two formulas for circumference is pi times diameter. And since diameter is equal to 2 times a radius, we can do C equals pi times 2r or 2r pi. 2 pi r, whichever one you want to do, 2 pi r. Multiplication is commutative, so it doesn't matter which order. Right. And the arc length also depends on the central angle. So if we're talking about the whole circle, the central angle would be 360, so we would have a full circumference. But if the angle is not 360, if it's any degree measure less than that, then we would be finding part of the circle's circumference, so like a piece of that distance. So we're going to do this in the same way that we did the area of a sector. We're just going to use a proportion. That way when we want to solve for the radius or diameter or the central angle, we're still doing the same process. We're solving a proportion for an unknown value. So nothing changes. So again, now we're just doing part of the circumference compared to the total circumference. So we're going to find the arc length for this example. The first question asks us about arc measure for the minor arc AB. Remember, arc measure is in degrees, like angle measures are in degrees. So the central angle here is 110 degrees, equal to the arc measure. So that's old. We did that in the previous lesson. And now the arc length. I want to know what is this distance along the circle between A and B. That's what arc length means, and we're going to round. So we're going to set up a proportion of the part of the circle to the total circle. So the part of the circle that we have is 110, and I'm looking for the arc length, which I don't know. So let's call that L. Okay, I don't know how long that is, so we're going to call that L. And the total number of degrees in a circle is 360. And the full circumference, the total circumference or the total arc length in the circle would be equal to C equals 2 pi r, or C equals pi times d. Here we have the radius, so that's going to be 2 times 8, which is the radius, pi, and that's 16 pi. And I always use the exact circumference when I'm solving. That way we don't round until the very end. And to solve the proportion, we cross multiply, or to solve for L by itself, the opposite of dividing by 16 pi would be multiplying both sides by 16 pi. So we get 110 times 16 pi divided by 360. Since we are going to round, we will push the pi button in our calculator. 110 times 16 pi divided by 360. So we get 15.4 when rounded. And that would just be in units for the length of AB, for that arc length. So now we're going to do the arc measure of the major arc ACB. So that's in degrees. Measures are in degrees. That's this direction. And how would we figure that out? Well, these two arc measures together sum to 360. So 360 minus 110 degrees. And we get 250. Don't mind that. I just put that in the calculator. And now we're going to find the arc length. So we have some options here. We have the 16 pi. I could calculate that by putting 16 times pi in my calculator and subtracting the arc length of L, because the length of arc ACB, whatever that distance is, would be the total circle, 16 pi, minus the 15.4 units. Or we could do degree measure. We can do the proportion again, whichever you think is easier. I think taking the total circumference minus L, which is our 15.4, and that's going to be 16 pi. We'll do that. Minus 15.4. We could scroll up in our calculator and use that entire number, the unrounded value. And so to the nearest tenth, 34.9 units. And that's the length of the arc. Lastly here, we're going to cover the exact arc length. So a circle is drawn to represent a pizza with 12-inch diameter. Passing through the center, this is a diameter of 12 inches. The circle is cut into 8 congruent pieces. What is the exact length of the outer edge of one piece? All right, so we're going to divide into 8 pieces. So that means if I were to take this full 360 degrees, I would divide it into 8 pieces to find out how much that degree measure is. But really, I want my piece of my pizza. So what's that for? Here's my piece. I want to know how long this is right here. Right? That would be 1/8 of the circle. So I would have 1/8 of the degrees in a circle. So the piece that I'm looking for, the length of the outer edge, the crust, I guess, that would be 1 out of 8 full pieces for that circle. So our full circumference would be pi times d. Since they gave me a diameter, that would be 12 pi. And to solve this proportion, we cross multiply, or to get L by itself, we would multiply both sides by 12 pi. So we get 12 pi over 8 equals L, and we can reduce that 12 over 8 down, or you can write the decimal. 1.5 pi equals L, and it's exact, and that would be in inches, because there is a pi still in there. Remember, pi is irrational. Once I press the pi button, that makes my answer irrational, and I have to round. So to have an exact answer, I need to leave my answer with pi in it.